we are going to get into Joseph. This is week 4 of Joseph. We only got 2 weeks. We got this week and next week. This week, we're going to be talking about Joseph and somewhat of a family reunion, all right? Remember Joseph, sold into slavery by his brothers, endured slavery for about 11 years, and then was in prison for about 2 years. Now he finally works for the Pharaoh. Pharaoh has a dream about 7 years of abundance and 7 years of famine. Well, the years of abundance are over, okay? Joseph has a wife, has kids. The years of abundance are over. We are now in the years of famine, all right? And what happens is what we're going to see in Genesis 42. It's going to be verse 6. But in Genesis 42, verse 6, what we see is Jacob tells his sons to go and get grain or to go and get food from Egypt because he's heard that it's there. And so he sends 10 of the brothers to go do that, but he keeps Benjamin, the youngest brother, at home because he already lost Joseph, so he's worried about Benjamin. So he keeps him at home, sends the other 10 because apparently they're expendable, and he asks them to go get food or grain for the family, all right? So we pick up in Genesis 42. Sorry, y'all, I got this itch in my throat earlier today or this morning. And then, of course, it's definitely prevalent now that I'm in front of people. Verse 6 is where it says, this is where it starts. It says, "Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground." Now remember, this is fulfillment of the dream that happened at the very beginning. Joseph said, "Y'all bow down to me one day." They got mad at this is why they hated him. But now we see it happen. Verse 7 continues and says, "As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. 'Where do you come from?' he asked. 'From the land of Canaan to buy food.' Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, 'You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected.' 'No, my lord,' they answered. 'Your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies.' 'No,' he said to them, 'you have come to see where our land is unprotected.' But they replied, 'Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man, who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and the one is no more.' Joseph said to them, 'It is just as I told you, you are spies, and this is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison, so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth. If you are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies,' and he put them all in custody for 3 days." All right, so the first thing I kind of want to point out to you here, is that Joseph is not acting out of anger, out of spite, out of vengeance. This is not his goal. This is not his plan, okay? I know that what he's doing here seems kind of weird, okay? Pretending to be a stranger, not revealing who he is. But I promise, and we'll get to it more later, he's not acting out of anger or vengeance. He's not looking to kill them. He's looking for reconciliation. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit later. But what he starts off doing here, what he's talking to them about, is being honest men. He knows who they are, right? And so notice what he does here. He talks to them about being honest men. You are spies. He's basically saying you're dishonest. You're here for a bad reason. They're saying, no, we're honest men. And in the midst of saying, no, we're honest men, they literally lie to him, okay? He says, "You're spies." They say, "No, we're honest men." He goes, "No, you're spies." And they say, no. We were 12 brothers, the sons of one man. The youngest is now with our father. And then they lie and say, "And one is no more," right? When they know that that's not the case. Because they didn't kill Joseph. They sold him into slavery, into Egypt. The same place that they had to go get grain from. You have to know that as soon as Jacob was like, "Hey guys, I need y'all to go to Egypt to get grain," they were like, "Oh, you mean that same Egypt in which we sold our brother? Got it," right? And you'll see them kind of mention this. And so what we see Joseph doing here is he's questioning their honesty. They lie to him, so he throws them in prison. Now they're going to be interrogated, right? And then notice kind of how he finishes up here in verse 18. So he tells them that they need, like, they're all going to stay in prison. One of them is going to go get the brother. Well, now he changes his mind, it seems, because on 18 it says, on the third day, Joseph said to them, do this and you will live, for I fear God. Notice how he starts 19, if you are honest men. So we talked about being honest before. I'm trying to see a change in your character here to see if you're different than you were. I talked about honesty, right? You lied to me. All right, well, I'm going to give you another chance here. I'm going to give you another chance at redemption here. So he says, if you are honest men, let one of your brothers stay here in prison while the rest of you go and take grain back for your starving households. But you must bring your youngest brother to me so that your words may be verified and that you may not die. This they proceeded to do. 21, they said to one another, surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us. Reuben replied, Reuben, this is the one who they threw Joseph in the cistern. They were planning to kill him. Reuben said, no, leave him there. And his plan was to come back and get Joseph and take him back to his father. But he was too late. By the time he got back, they had already sold him. And so then he just decided to go along with the lie, right? Reuben replied, didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood. They did not realize that Joseph could understand them since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then came back and spoke to them again. He had Simeon taken from them and bound before their eyes. So, all right. So first thing I want to point out here is that notice what comes to the surface as soon as the brothers encounter trouble and suffering, right? This is what happens when we have regrets, when we do wicked things, when we are evil in the eyes of the Lord. Is that what happens is those regrets kind of stay with us. They're just under the surface. We don't forget them, right? As soon as things go wrong, as soon as things start not working out, we start to wonder, is it because of this? This is exactly what the brothers do, right? They're told to go to the same Egypt, go back to the Egypt, probably a place they didn't like talking about, probably a place they didn't like referencing, because it was a place of their worst crime, so to speak. But then they're told to go back to Egypt. They get to Egypt, and immediately they have an issue, right? The guy starts speaking harshly to them, calling them dishonest, right? And they know that they're dishonest, so they lie. They say, no, we're honest. They get thrown in jail. He's going to let them go back. But at this point, now they've got to bring their youngest brother back to them. A youngest brother their father's not going to want to send. And they're starting to realize we kind of have a large problem here. And so they immediately kind of turn inwardly and start blaming one another. You see, if we had just done right by our brother the first time, this wouldn't have happened, but now we're having to do an accounting. Reuben starts blaming them. If you just listened to me from the first place, this wouldn't have happened, right? Sounds like a lot of us when we start to get kind of squeezed under pressure, when we know we've done something wrong or we've done something bad, right? We start to feel that, and so we start lashing out. This is what the brothers start doing. The other thing I want to point out is what Joseph is doing here. Now, I know I told you, Joseph is not after anger, vengeance. He's not after hate, okay? Joseph is doing the right thing. We know Joseph's character throughout the entire story to be of righteousness, of good character, of trusting, having faith in God, right? Joseph, now I'm not suggesting we all do the same things Joseph did here to his brothers in the same situation, all right? But in this case, we can trust that Joseph is trusting God, and God is using Joseph in this situation to further something for not only Joseph, but for also the brothers, right? And so, but notice what Joseph's doing here, testing their honesty, interrogates them. When they go back to their father in just a little bit, they tell him that Joseph had the interrogators ask how many, about their family, ask whether or not their father was still alive, right? Like he's asking questions that he probably wants to know the answers to. So their interrogation was not of spies, so to speak, it seems like, but more about their family. So he starts with the honesty. Here's the second thing he does. He's sending them back, and he's asking to see Benjamin, all right? Now, number one, he wants to verify if they're being truthful. I want to see that my youngest brother is still alive, right? I want to see him personally. But you got to understand a little bit of the family dynamic going on. Remember, Joseph was the favorite brother. He was the favorite son. Why? Because he was the son of Rachel, which was Jacob, his father's favorite wife, right? Oldest son of Rachel. Well, Rachel's second son, all right, was Benjamin. So it's kind of y'all hated me for being the son of Rachel. You hated me for being the favorite. And it kind of seems like Benjamin's the favorite now because Jacob didn't send him, right? He cares, apparently, like in a weird way, he kind of cares more about Benjamin's life than the rest of them because he wanted to make sure Benjamin stayed home and was protected. So Joseph's kind of going, well, if you hated me as a son of Rachel, are you going to hate Benjamin as a son of Rachel? So I want to see Benjamin. I want to see him. I want to make sure my brother's still alive. I want to see that you're telling the truth and that you didn't just do to Benjamin what you did to me, kind of thing. So this is a test. He's asking something of them. He wants to see a change in character. He wants to see something different in them. So now, last night I had a crisis. About 11:30, I had finished practicing, and I was like, there's a lot of information to do in one Sunday. I was like, maybe it should be split up. So I kind of reassessed the entire sermon. And just the way that I organized the information and the way that kind of the points in the sermons were leading towards, I decided to keep it the same. So what we're doing here, I'm going to tell you what goes on in this story a little bit. We're in chapter 42. The next time we're going to pick up is chapter 44. Okay, so we're going to get 2 chapters away. But I want you to know what happened on the in-between. Okay? So as quickly as I can or as concisely as I can, what happens is that Joseph then fills their bags with grain, okay, as much as he possibly can. He tells the officials, give them as much as you can, send them back to their families, all right? And he tells the officials, put the silver back in their bags, put it on top, okay? And so the brothers leave, they get a little ways away or they stop for the night. They open their bags and they realize our silver's here. Well, great. You would think it's like, oh, got our money back. This is awesome. That's not what they do. Again, when we're under pressure and we've done something wicked and bad, we don't see things the way they should be. And so they see it as a curse. They go, oh, great. Now we're going to be accused of robbing them. We're going to be accused of thievery. And they get their money back, and their literal response is, God, why have you done this to me? Right? Like, why have you given me free food and full bags? I can't believe this. But they see it as, oh, well, we're going to be in trouble because this guy doesn't like us. Well, now he's going to accuse us of stealing from him. This is a whole problem now, right? So they get back. They talk to Jacob, their father, and they tell Jacob everything that happened. We got to bring Benjamin. Reuben, remember, the one who tried to save Joseph but ended up just going along with the plan. Reuben actually tells his father, I will stake Benjamin's safety. If you let us take Benjamin with us, I'll stake his safety. I'll stake my 2 kids' lives on his safety, okay? And Jacob tells him, no, he's not going. So poor Simeon stays in jail. I don't know if Simeon thought they were going to hurry back for him, but they don't really. It's not until they run out of food that Jacob is like, y'all got to go back and get more. And they're like, well, we can't go back unless we got Benjamin with us. He said he wouldn't even look at us unless we have Benjamin with us. And so here you see Judah. Judah goes to his father and says, look, I will stake my life on Benjamin's. I promise that if you give him to me, I'll bring him back to you. Now, the irony in this, why this is important, is because Judah is the one who says, why would we just kill Joseph? We might as well sell him for some money when we sell him into slavery, right? And he's the one who comes up with the whole plan to get 20 pieces of silver by selling Joseph off. So we see this kind of change in Judah, this kind of change in character a little bit. You see Judah step up and tell his father, I promise I'll bring Benjamin back for you. And his father seems to trust him because he says, go ahead, take Benjamin, go get us grain. If something happens to him and I'm grieved, then I'm grieved, right? So he sends them off. Well, they get back, Joseph sees them. He sees that Benjamin's with them, tells his officials, go make dinner, they're going to eat at my house. Well, now the brothers are really freaking out, okay? Because they're like, why is he taking us to his house? Like, he's going to take us to his house so that he can accuse us and kill us. Like, that's pretty much where their mind's going. So they actually stop an official and they're like, hey, we paid last time, but we found our gold, our silver in our bags. And he's like, yeah, I already got paid. Don't worry about it, guys. And so they're panicking. They have dinner. And Joseph sends them off again, packs up their bags, gives them as much grain as they can possibly get, right? Puts their silver back on their bags again so they get their money back. But then he does something interesting, which is he takes a silver cup from his house, sticks it in Benjamin's bag, and tells them, goodbye, and they ride off. Then he tells his official, after they go a little ways, he tells his official, go after them. Somebody stole my silver cup. Okay? So the official stops them, says, somebody stole a silver cup, and they're like, no, nobody did anything. We promise. Nobody did anything. We swear. And they let him check the bags, and of course, the silver cup's in Benjamin's bag. So they said, well, now, they basically said, if you find the cup, we'll all be slaves. So they find the cup, and they take them all back to Joseph. All right? They take them all back to Joseph, and where we pick up is in Genesis 44. Judah recognizes the situation, okay? And he pleads with Joseph. He goes and talks to him. And he explains what happened. And so in 16, Genesis 44, verse 16, Judah says this to Joseph. He says, what can we say, my lord? Judah replied, what can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered your servants' guilt. We are now my Lord's slaves, we ourselves and the one who was found to have the cup. But Joseph said, far be it from me to do such a thing. The man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. So he's basically saying, I'm not going to punish you all. That doesn't make no sense. Don't blame this on me. He's the one who stole it. So only the man who was found to have the cup will become my slave. The rest of you go back to your father in peace. All right? It says, then Judah went up to him and said, pardon your servant, my lord. Let me speak a word to my lord. Do not be angry with your servant, though you are equal to Pharaoh himself. Notice the kind of different tone in Judah here, right? The humility, the character change it seems that Judah has had. His father trusts him to do this, and then it seems as if Judah is stepping up to take ownership of what he promised. Judah says, my lord asked his servant, so you asked us, do you have a father or a brother? And we answered, we have an aged father, and there is a young son born to him in his old age. His brother is dead. Still kind of lying there. His brother is dead, and he is the only one of his mother's sons left, and his father loves him. Then you said to your servants, bring him down to me, so I can see him for myself. So you asked for him to come, and we said to my lord, the boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves him, the father will die. His father will die. But you told your servants, unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again. When we went back to your servant, my father, we told him what you said, what my lord had said. Then our father responded to us and said, go back and buy a little bit more food. But we told him, we said, we cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us will we go. We cannot see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Your servant, my father, so Jacob said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. One of them went away from me, and I said, he has surely been torn to pieces. So that's Joseph. And I have not seen him since. If you take this one, Benjamin, from me too, and harm comes to him, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in misery. So this is where he gets to his pleading. He says, so now, if the boy is not with us, when I go back to your servant, my father, and if my father, whose life is closely bound up with the boy's life, sees that the boy isn't there, he will die. Your servants, so us, we will bring the gray head of our father down to the grave in sorrow. Your servant, now he's talking about himself, I guaranteed the boy's safety to my father. I said, if I do not bring him back to you, I will bear the blame before you, my father, all my life. Now then, please let me or your servant remain here as my Lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. All right, notice the complete 180 Judah has made here. This is the guy who suggested to sell his brother into slavery. Now he's asking to be a slave himself in place of his brother. This is the situation. You have another brother who's born of Rachel, who's arguably the favorite because Jacob cares about him so much, right? He became the favorite after they got rid of the first brother, Joseph. Now Benjamin's the favorite. So you have another situation in which these brothers have an opportunity to get rid of a son of Rachel, a favorite, and they have an opportunity to lie about it and make up some story about, what happened to them. But you see a different response here. When I said that Joseph is doing some kind of weird things, hiding a cup, then blaming it on them. And, he's doing some strange things. But again, God is using Joseph in this situation to bring about some things. And one of the things he's bringing about is an opportunity for repentance, an opportunity for redemption. And so there's this situation in which Judah has an opportunity to once again leave a son of Rachel in slavery in Egypt, right? Never has to see him again. But what you see Judah do is completely 180 of what he did in the past. If you want to see some of what went on with Judah in that process to kind of change that, you can read chapter 38 of Genesis. I'm not going to go over it. The next time I do Joseph, I think I would do it in a different way and use that part as well. But feel free to read chapter 38 on your own. You see some of the things that happened to Judah, and you see why there would be a change in him, okay? Anyway, that being said, we see Judah respond in a different way. He's honest, tells him the complete truth, not trying to lie to him, okay? He's trying to let him know this is what happened. I'm just trying to do the right thing. I told him that it would be on my life that I take care of his son. I'm asking you, please let me be the slave, not Benjamin, right? Completely different response, completely different answer that's going on here from Judah, as opposed to what happened in the first instance. When he was sick of Joseph, he hated him and he got rid of him. You also see care for the family, right? Judah mentions, my father will be grieved. I can imagine they didn't realize, however guys are, or however it is we convince ourselves or we justify our actions, and then it's not till we see the results or the consequences of those actions that we realize how bad our action really was. You can imagine that Judah, they sold their brother only to come home and see just how grieved and upset their father was at this, right? And he mentions it. Don't make me go back. Don't make me go back and tell him that Benjamin's not coming home, because I know what he's going to look like if I have to tell him that, right? In fact, Jacob had already gotten mad at him, saying, I sent you to Egypt, or, I sent you to Egypt and you haven't taken care of my sons. The first one, you let him get mauled and eaten and he died. The second one's now in prison, Simeon. And so this is why he didn't want to send Benjamin. But Judah has kind of stepped up, said he's been honest, he's followed through on his promise, and instead of trying to get somebody into slavery, he's trying to get somebody out of it. Even though presumably the brothers just assume Benjamin stole a cup. They don't know that it's a setup, right? So I say all that to say, this can be a hard, arguably a convicting passage. Here's why. Joseph, what they did to Joseph is easily unthinkable, and in a lot of cases probably unforgivable. I mean, think about it now. We see a lot of crazy headlines on social media. We see a lot of crazy headlines on the news now. It really wouldn't be that out of place for us to see a headline in which it says, brothers sell other brother into slavery, right? That's something, unfortunately, that could pop up on our headlines. It could. And what would happen in our society is that, those other brothers that sold him, they're horrible, despicable people, no matter how old they are. They deserve to go to prison for life. That's how we would see this as a society, right? And Joseph has every right to feel the exact same way. He was sold into slavery. He was robbed of years with his family. He was robbed of years living with his people. He had to endure emotional, physical labor and stress because he had to be a slave for 11 years. He endured 2 years of prison in Egypt before things started working out for him. And even then, even when he has a wife and he has kids, those kids never met his father. They don't know their grandparents. They don't know their culture. They don't know their customs or anything because of what his brothers did to him. And so when he sees his brothers, it would not be out of the realm of possibility that if we read the Old Testament and we read that Joseph saw his brothers and he had them killed on the spot, we would have been like, yeah, well, I mean, they kind of had it coming. You know what I mean? Like, it wouldn't have been, we wouldn't have thought it was weird based on the other things that go on in the Old Testament. We would have been like, yeah, I mean, that's what you get when you mess with, right? Like, but that's not what he does. He sees them, right? And yeah, he does a few strange things, throws them in prison, kind of talks hard to them. But for the most part, what they deserve when he sees them is immediate death or enslavement. That's what they deserve. That's what they earned by their actions. And yet what he does, now God is using him, but through Joseph in his righteous character, in his trusting of God, instead looks for reconciliation. That's what he wants with them. You can see it because he tells them, fill all their bags with grain and give them their money back. It's almost as if there's no hard feelings. I'm teaching them a lesson here. I'm growing them, but I'm still going to take care of them because what I want is that reconciliation, right? This is a mirror. What we see is a mirror of what God does for us, right? We sin, we reject him, we deny him. We sin against him, we do wrong by him. And when he sees us, based on the result of sin, which is death, when he sees us, when we come back to him and say we would like grace, we would like mercy, he could see us and it would be totally justifiable to say, oh, well, yeah, but what you really deserve is death. So that's what I'm going to give you. But that's not what he does. Instead, God is always pursuing reconciliation with us. And then just like Joseph, or Joseph just like God is really how you would phrase that, but just like in that situation, then God gives us opportunities for redemption. I want to see a change in you, right? He wants our hearts to change. Because that's the second thing we grab from this passage that's convicting is that, now I know Joseph is the star of the show, all right? He's the main character, so to speak, the protagonist. And we would all like to be Joseph. We'd all like to think that our righteous character and, you know, the way that we trust God and handle trials, that we're the Joseph in the story. But the reality is that if we're really honest, we're the brothers in this story. That's who we are. I'm a brother in the story, all right? You're a brother in the story. We sin against others. We're selfish a lot of times. We're self-righteous. We only care about what happens to us, right? We'll do anything to get ourselves out of trouble. If we got to step on somebody to get up, we will. It's not until we recognize who God is that we kind of change, right? But we're the brothers in this story. And so when we go to God and say, we're the brothers, when we go to God and to quote Judah, say, what can we say? How can we prove our innocence? God, you have uncovered your servants' guilt, right? We go to him and we say that. We say, well, you've uncovered my guilt. I'm sorry for what I've done. The hope in this passage, the good thing is that you see that God doesn't meet us when we go to God in that way. He doesn't meet us with hate or anger or vengeance. That's not what he's looking for. No, we know that we can run to him and we can say, hey, I know the deal now. I'm a sinner. I've done wrong against you. You're the one who is just and holy. And I'm asking for grace and acceptance. And he gives that to us. Right? This is the encouragement of the passage, is that we're the brothers, but it's okay because God is not done with them. They're not just cast off. God doesn't do what society would do, which is, you're done. I'll never trust you ever again. You deserve death or enslavement immediately, right? That's not what God does. God looks at us and goes, no, I can still use you. I still need you. I want to see some redemption in you. I want to see your heart change. I want you to have faith in me, trust in me, and I can still use you for good, right? If you don't have a relationship with God, if you haven't believed in him, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, I'll say what I'd normally say, which is you don't have to leave the same way you came. If you came with this lack of relationship with God, you don't have to leave that way. You can know that right now, no matter what the mistake is, whatever regret you hold on to, the thing that tends to surface when you're put under pressure, the kind of bad things you've done that you don't talk about with people or we don't air in public, whatever it may be, I mean, these guys sold their brother into slavery. And God is willing to look past that for their redemption. He's willing to look past that so that he can see their repentance. There's willing to be forgiveness and reconciliation. He's willing to do the same for you regardless of what you've done. And so I would encourage you, you don't have to leave the same way you came. You can have a relationship with God today. You can feel what that repentance, what that redemption feels like. To know that he loves you regardless of your past sins and mistakes. Because the part we haven't talked about yet, and we'll get to next week, so spoilers just a little bit. What we haven't talked about yet is the fact that Joseph reveals himself, forgives them, right? There's reconciliation between the family, and then what you learn later on in different books of the Bible, like Ruth and other things, is that Judah, one of Judah's sons, Perez, right, is in the lineage of Jesus. So you have this Judah who sold somebody into slavery. Then you see him kind of redeem himself in a different quality. You see the whole family blessed. And ultimately it leads to a lineage of Jesus Christ. And there's not much more redemption you can gain than that. Right? And so you see a family who did something very evil and yet was blessed because of their response when they were given a chance at turning around, at repenting. And we have that same opportunity by placing our faith in Jesus Christ. We can repent, and he wants reconciliation with us, and he wants to redeem us. Even if you're a Christian in here, you already have a relationship. Maybe lately you've done something bad. You've done something you don't want to talk about. Maybe you feel like you messed up, you've gone wayward, you kind of stepped off the line you were on, you were doing real well, now you're not. You don't have to worry about coming back to Christ, coming back to God, and worry about hate, vengeance, or anger. You need to know that you can come back to him, and what he'll respond to you with is the same thing we see Joseph respond with, which is some grace and mercy, right? Looking to be patched up, looking to be back together, looking to have a strong relationship with one another. We'll get into it a little bit more next week. I told you that there's going to be so much more blessings. There's going to be a conclusion and end to this story. I would encourage our church by just saying, we've gone through strife. We've had some issues in the past. I don't think we should learn, as we move forward, I don't think we should focus. We've got to get away from this focus of blaming or pointing fingers at somebody, or it's time to, like the people you're upset with that maybe either used to be here or aren't here anymore, you're upset with decisions that were made, whatever it is, it's time that we start kind of healing that. Because if we see those people again, if we meet them, if we, whatever it is, what is our response in that? Are we going to meet them with what God meets us with? Because that's kind of our standard, right? That's what we're asked to. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that there weren't things done that are hard to forgive or were unthinkable, whatever it may be. But I'm suggesting that this is the convicting part of this passage, is that Joseph is our standard. This is what we should aim for as Christians. And so though it's convicting, I couldn't find where I was going with that. Though it's convicting, I would also say it's encouraging. Know that, yes, other people are going to do things to us, and it's going to be really hard to respond the way Joseph responds here. Because what we're really going to want is justice, swift, right? That's what we want. We want swift justice. They should get the highest punishment they can get for what they did to me. And it's challenging because we don't see Joseph do that. On the other end, though, we have to recognize that we are also sinners. And there are times where we mess up and people want that highest judgment for us. And it's only by the grace and mercy of God that we are forgiven and we're still used in a plan for redemption. Let me pray for us.